Congress, it continues its recess, and it doesn't return until September 9th. But while congressional Democrats have been away from D.C., more and more of them now supporting opening up impeachment proceedings against the president. At last count, more than half, they want to move forward. That's one of the biggest issues facing the Judiciary Committee, and our own Dominic, he sat down with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. He serves on that committee. He's also chairman of the House Democratic Caucus.
Congressman, let's start with impeachment. Half of your caucus is for impeaching President Trump. Where do you stand on this issue?
Well, in my view, when we come back to Washington in the aftermath of Labor Day, we're going to have a robust conversation about the best way to proceed in terms of holding this president accountable. We all agree that no single individual in the United States of America is above the law, certainly not the President of the United States of America. The House is a separate and co-equal branch of government. We don't work for Donald Trump, we work for the American people. We do have a responsibility to serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control president or executive branch. Part of that responsibility does include the impeachment inquiry that we may or may not decide to undertake in the fall.
But of course, Congressman Jeffries, there's the question for Democrats of could it backfire politically?
Well, in my view, if we go forward, we have to present the strongest possible case to the American people, regardless of what the Senate does. We know that the Senate Republicans are going to function like wholly owned subsidiaries of the Trump administration and not like a separate and co-equal branch of government. The House has its own responsibility, and we need to continue to follow the facts, apply the law, and be guided by the Constitution wherever that leads. Chairman Jerry Nadler has indicated that he's going to have hearings on 3 issues. 1, obstruction of justice. 2, abuse of power. 3, the culture of corruption that appears to exist at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. In my view, that's an important step in the right direction, and we'll see where that leads.
There are some that point to what they say is the president's inflammatory and racially insensitive remarks. He's on CDC. He's on immigration. The administration's latest move to detain families longer. What do you think, Congressman?
Without question, the president is a racial arsonist who never hesitates to fan the flames of hatred in America for his own personal, political, or professional interests. It's a shame, it's a scandal, and we need to call it out and make sure that it's not normalized. I believe that at the end of the day, the American people are going to reject the hatred and the xenophobia that are constantly coming out of the White House and being peddled by this president like a street corner drug dealer.
Let's switch gears. The squad versus the Pelosi wing. Is there a danger of the party moving too far left, and for that matter, the 2020 Democrats?
Well, the House Democratic Caucus is a diverse caucus. We're a robust caucus. We're a rambunctious caucus. But at the end of the day, we're a family. And at times, families may agree to disagree, but we should never be disagreeable. And everyone from the most progressive member to the most centrist member to members of leadership all believe that we should focus on an agenda that advances the best interests of everyday Americans. We have a For the People agenda that is anchored around lowering health care costs, including by driving down the high cost of life-saving prescription drugs, and enacting a real infrastructure plan. We have a $1 trillion plan that we think can create 16 million good-paying jobs. And we have a democracy reform effort that we believe will break open the opportunity for everyday Americans to participate in our democracy, consistent with the notion of one person and one vote. Every single member of the House Democratic Caucus supports those planks of our For the People agenda. And I think what you'll see is moving forward, we're going to try to make sure that that's where our center of gravity is as we proceed.
I close this way, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Should Democrats just care about beating President Trump instead of purity tests on things like Medicare for all?
Well, in my view, we should welcome a robust debate around issues connected to fixing our healthcare system and making sure that we have universal access to high-quality healthcare for everyone that is affordable. Healthcare is a right. It's not a privilege in the United States of America. We have to bring that right to life. But I do think, at the end of the day, we need to focus on what distinguishes us as Democrats and our vision to create prosperity in every single zip code, with the Republican effort to fight for the privileged few, the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. And the danger that President Trump and his failed economic policies will continue to pose for middle-class folks, for working families, for senior citizens, and for young people if he's given another 4 years.
Thank you, Dominic. Now, coming up next, we got some local stories, including an update on that water crisis in Newark and a huge shakeup in the Philly police force.